The Secret Garden. Mary Lennox. Mary Lennox was an unhappy and sick child. She had a thin face, a thin body, and light yellow hair. She was always angry and hardly ever smiled. Everyone said she looked ugly and sour. Mary was born in India. Her mother never wanted a child and ignored her. Her father was always busy working, and she seldom saw him, so an Indian servant, Aya, took care of her. Mary never had any friends, and she never learned to play with others. Aya always her to do whatever she wanted, so she became a spoiled, bad-tempered child. When she was 9, Mary's parents died of cholera. She was sent to live with her uncle Archibald Craven in England. His home Misselthwaite Manor stood on the edge of Yorkshire moors. When Mary arrived in London, her uncle's housekeeper, Mrs. Medlock, met her. She was a stout woman with rosy red cheeks and sharp black eyes. "Hello, Mary," said Mrs. Medlock. "Your uncle has sent me to meet you." "Are you my servant?" asked Mary. Grunted Mrs. Medlock. "You'd better have good manners. I work for your uncle, not for you. Hurry, we have to catch the train." Mary thought the housekeeper was horrible, so she didn't want to talk to her. When they boarded the train to Yorkshire, Mary ignored Mrs. Medlock. She sat with her nose pressed against the window and watched the passing landscape. "Everything looks so cold and gray," thought Mary sadly. "It's very different from sunny India." "Your uncle's home is big and grand, but it's old and gloomy," said Mrs. Medlock. Mary didn't want to listen, but anything new interested her. "There's a big park around it and lots of gardens and trees," continued Mrs. Medlock. "It has about 100 rooms, but most are kept locked." "Why are the rooms locked?" asked Mary. "When your uncle was young, he was always angry," said Mrs. Medlock. "He has a crooked back and didn't like meeting people. Then he married a lovely lady, and they were very happy. But she died suddenly, and after that he's been away a lot, so we don't need many rooms." Mary became interested in his uncle. It was a late evening when they finally arrived at Misselthwaite Manor. When Mary saw the house, she couldn't believe how big it was. The walls were long and low and made of grey brick. It was built around a large stone courtyard, and the house was surrounded by acres of beautiful gardens. "Come on, Mary, I will take you to your room," said Mrs. Medlock. She led Mary up the wide staircase and along 2 long dark corridors. Eventually, she opened one of the closed doors. The room was large. Inside, a fire was burning in the grate, and her supper was ready on a small table. "This is your room," said Mrs. Medlock. "Don't go wandering around the manor. Mr. Craven doesn't like it." Mary felt so lonely that she couldn't eat the supper, so she climbed into the bed and tried to sleep. The next morning, when Mary woke up, a young woman was cleaning her room. "Who are you?" asked Mary. "I'm Martha. I clean your room and bring your meals. It's time you got dressed." "But who's going to have me dress?" asked Mary. "Surely you can't dress yourself," said Martha. No, sobbed Mary. In India, my servants always helped me. I'll help you today, but I don't usually have time, said Martha. You'll have to learn to do it yourself. When she was dressed, Mary looked out the window. She could see the gloomy landscape. What's that? She asked. That's the moor, replied Martha. In summer, when the heather and gorse flowers, the air smells sweet, and you can even hear the bees humming and the birds singing. I don't like it. It's so dull and gray. It's not dull, said Martha. I have 11 brothers and sisters. They play on the moor every day. My mother says fresh air is good for us, but Mary didn't believe a word of it. After breakfast, Martha said, Now go and play outside. Can someone come with me? Asked Mary. Nobody has the time. My brother Dickon stayed out of the moor for hours on his own. He's a kind boy, and all the animals like him. If you're lucky, you will meet him. It was cold outside, so Mary put on a coat and warm boots. She felt very lonely. The gardens are that way, said Martha, but one of the gardens is always locked. Why? Asked Mary. It was Mrs. Craven's garden. When she died, Mr. Craven locked the gate and buried the key. Oh, that sounds strange, thought Mary. She was curious about the secret garden. Outside, Mary saw vast lawns and trees of all sizes. It was winter, so there were no flowers to be seen, and the fountain wasn't working. She followed a long path leading to a tall brick wall. A large green door stood open, so she went through it. Inside, she found an old orchard. She went through several more doors. Each time she discovered another walled garden. Each time she discovered another walled garden. Finally, she came to the kitchen garden. At the far end, she found a wall covered in ivy, but she couldn't find a door. This might be the secret garden, she thought, but there's no way in. Suddenly, Mary heard a bird singing cheerfully in one of the trees. She looked up and saw a little bird with a red breast. He hopped about on the branches to get her attention. A smile appeared on her Anne's face. As she came out of the garden, Mary saw an old man with a wheelbarrow. I can't find the door into the garden, she said. Which garden? Said the old man. The one behind the kitchen garden. It has a large tree hanging over the wall. I saw a bird with a red breast singing in it. He was singing merrily. Suddenly, the bird flew down onto the flashingly dark ground. That's my friend, the robin, he said. Who are you? Asked Mary. Ben, I'm the gardener, he said. Are you Mr. Craven's niece from India? Yes, I am, said Mary. At that moment, the robin flew up into an old apple tree and began to sing. I think he likes you, said Ben. Really? Then Mary asked the robin, Will you be my friend too? I've never had any friends. Will you be my friends too? I've never had my friends. We all like you and I, said Ben, and I bet you have a bad temper like me. Mary was shocked. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Am I really bad-tempered like this old man? She thought. Suddenly, the bird flew over the wall and into the secret garden. He lives in there among the old roses and flower beds. Where's the door to that garden? Asked Mary. The door was bricked up years ago, said Ben, angrily. She began to think about the secret garden. She felt that the garden must be behind the wall, covered in ivy. She decided to find the secret garden. Thank you.